Choose with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Chew's Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Friday morning, political fighters. Welcome to the August 28th, 2026 edition of Chew's Views. 773-763-9278 is the number. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. And, of course, we broadcast on WARR down in North Carolina and KTNF up in Minnesota, the Progressive Voice. Email me at richard@wcpt820.com and follow me on all the socials under Chew's Views. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast and, of course, Spotify on Spotify. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to iHeartRadio. There you can get Chew's Views, featured interviews, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, the great Patty Vasquez, Driving It Home, and It's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath. We always look forward to our shows, and make sure you're plugging in and tuned in. And, of course, Out Chicago and our other great shows and interviews. Always a joy to talk about what they're doing. And in the evening, make sure you guys are checking out the Politics Bar, the Matt McNeil Show, and the Gailey Show, because that is also what rounds us out every single day. Make your way over to heartlandsignal.com, and man, oh man, are they lined up over there. There's just too many things to review. I'll just tell you to go there. Maybe I'll give you one or two. How about this one? The single most important provision in Obamacare is the expansion of Medicaid. Daniel Squadron, president and co-founder of Future Now, highlights how, despite Obamacare, millions still lack access to expanded Medicaid purely due to state government decisions. This is the kind of what can I say? It's the kind of leadership that we need. We need to speak about the things that may not be working as well as we want, but they're still there in place. The Trump administration, the GOP at large, all they've wanted to do is take away the benefits of many Americans. And it shouldn't have taken a John McCain's thumb down years ago for people to realize that that our health care has to be preserved and that we need to have the strength of Obamacare and then have it strengthened. But who was it at the end of the year that wanted to take away the subsidies from millions of Americans as we got into 2026? It wasn't the Democratic Party. It wasn't progressives. It wasn't liberals. Hell, it wasn't even the DSA. They were actually, this is the crazy thing about it, those who might want to refer to themselves as democratic socialists or be referred to that way, they're the ones that are pushing for Medicare for all. So they want to see our healthcare systems get better. But as Daniel said, this is the Obamacare expansion has been one of the greatest benefits to our healthcare system, one of the most important decisions and provisions. So these are the types of articles that we cover there. There's a couple of articles on how some of the Republicans are viewing the WNBA, more comments from Michigan candidate for U.S. Senate, Dr. El-Sayed, on Hassan Piker and his comments. So make your way over to heartlandsignal.com because that's where all the good stuff is. I am, excuse me, I am excited to say that on today's show, we will be talking with our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast. But here's the trick. Here's the interesting thing. From everything that I know, and I haven't checked in with her yet this morning, Karen's on the road. She's on the road to D.C. She and some of her cohorts decided to rent a van, and they're on their way to a march and rally in Washington, D.C. I hope that they've made it there, or at least they're safely on their way now. So Karen will be calling in literally from the road. As you guys know, every other week, Karen calls in to the show, and she's in studio on the other week. But today, she's going to be calling in. So we hope that she's safe and we have a good connection and we can chat about where she's headed and what she's up to. Also on the show today will be our good friend, Amy McDonald, campaign manager for Democratic candidate Ashley Bell in North Carolina's 10th Congressional District. But But Amy and I won't be talking about that campaign as much as we'll be talking about a lot of the issues that are going on with voting and some of the issues that are going on with this crazy A administration and how they're impacting voters in North Carolina. And then last but not least is our good friend, Professor Kevin Schultz from the University of Illinois at Chicago. He is the author also of the great best-selling book, Why Everyone Hates White Liberals, Including White Liberals. So really looking forward to talking to the doc today and having him be part of the show as always. We'll talk a little bit of history. We'll talk a little bit about voter disenfranchisement over the years and how that's impacted so much that's gone on in our nation. And then when we come back from this first break, I'm going to bring you some Choose Views news and what's going on with our other shows today. And we're going to, in my brief segment today on Something to Chew On, I want to reference back to, obviously this week with us losing Dolly Parton and just some additional thoughts that I have there. So just to let you guys know. Now, what is the question of the day? In keeping with the memory of Dolly Parton and music, here's our question of the day. And it's also my way of kind of, keeping it somewhat light here on this Friday. And so I'd like to know, if you kind of go back in the Wayback Machine, what has been your favorite music concert that you've ever attended? What's been your favorite music concert that you've ever attended? I don't care if it was 50 years ago, if it were 5 years ago. What's been that favorite musical concert that you've gone to? Big venue, small venue, doesn't matter. And let us know who the artist was, when it was, and just some of your memories about it. Hopefully we'll be able to get your calls in. If we don't, just let Mike know when you do call in and he'll get me a text to let me know, and we'll try to talk about it on the air. And if you send a text to to our line, we'll try to talk about it. Go to Facebook Live and leave your thoughts and comments there. And always, you can always give us a call, and the guys will do their best to get that on the air for us, or at least to me, so that we can get it on the air. But that's our question of the day. What has been, or what was your favorite concert that you've ever attended, and what was that concert? Who was the artist? What did you enjoy about it? And we'll talk about it. How's that sound? It's Fridays, guys. Wow, this is the last Friday of August. Summer's not over. Summer's not over. So just so you know, we still have a few more weeks. So I don't want to hear anybody saying, oh, no, Labor Day's next weekend, summer's over. It's not. I've never believed that, and I'm not going to start today. So just because this is the last week of the last Friday of August does not mean that summer is over. So get out and enjoy yourself this weekend. I know we got Labor Day weekend coming up next weekend, but make sure you're out and you're enjoying yourselves. We are going to take a quick break. The number, of course, is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Stay tuned for Choose Views. We'll be right back. All right, guys. Welcome back to Choose Views. Thanks for being with us this morning. Glad you guys could be tuning in. So question of the day, of course, is what is your favorite concert that you've ever attended? And tell us a little bit about it. I've already gotten some responses to that. My favorite concert was Crosby, Stills, and Nash at Kent State, May 4th, 1997. That comes from our good friend Kurt Herner from Akron, Ohio. Letting us know about his musical past. So I'm curious what you guys have to say, where you were, what the concert was, what the artist was, and how it made you feel. But right now, let's bring you a couple of quick Choose Views news items on this August 28th, 2026. U.S. economy grew slowly before spending stalled in July. The U.S. economy grew slowly in the second quarter at a pace of just 1.5%, roughly matching expectations, while decelerating from the previous quarter. Federal data out on Wednesday of this week shows that there's been a lackluster expansion, and that may have been offset a little bit by strong consumer spending during that same period. A separate Commerce Department report released Wednesday shows spending remained flat in July, supporting the case for the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates unchanged. And that's not going to make Donnie happy, but the numbers don't lie, even though he may. Mortgage demand weakens as rates hit a 3-week high. Overall mortgage application volume fell last week as interest rates increased again. Data out Wednesday does show that has happened. Demand dipped 1% from the week prior as the average rate for a home loan climbed 6.78%, the highest level in 3 weeks. Applications to refinance a home declined 2%, and the average loan size for refinances was at its lowest since 2025. Moving on, the FDA has approved the life-altering pancreatic cancer treatment, Diraxonrasib, that's the name of the drug, has been approved to treat advanced pancreatic cancer and extend the patient's life. The drug, which has been sold as Rasonacu, targets cancer driven by a mutation in the RAS gene family. In a clinical trial, it is shown to nearly double the survival rates. So that's good news for those who are struggling with that cancer. Taylor Farms has a spotty record on workplace injury in their latest reports. Another headache or stomach ache, perhaps, for the produce supplier at the heart of this summer's cyclospora outbreak. In the past 5 years, Taylor Farms hasn't always submitted workplace injury reports as required by federal laws. According to Reuters and a review of the federal records, they found that 5 to 7 Taylor Farms facilities filed reports in a timely manner, though at least 17 were required to do so. That's well below the industry's average reporting rate of 78%. And Bill Gates has sounded the alarm over the runaway risk of AI. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates acknowledged that there is an apparent contradiction when the father, as a father of the software revolution, cautions against the groundbreaking technology. But in an interview with the New York Times and a 6,000-word essay on his personal website, Gates articulates how artificial intelligence has left him worried for the future of humanity. And then last but not least, jobless claims dipped to a no hire, no fire labor environment. The number of Americans seeking first-time unemployment benefits dipped for a second consecutive week to a seasonally adjusted 203,000 through August 22nd. Economists surveyed by the Wall Street Journal and Reuters were expecting 208,000. Continuing claims, a proxy for hiring, also fell slightly to a seasonally adjusted 1.78 million through August 15th. So there you go, guys. A couple of quick Choose Views news items on this August 28th, 2026. And today on Live, Local, and Progressive, for those listening to WCPT, Joan Esposito will be taking your calls for the first half of the show, then talking to Chris Fitzsimon, host of the Stories of the States podcast, Joe Wine-Banks, legal analyst and author and podcaster, and poets Mark Turcotte and Maya Del Valle, who are scheduled to appear at the Printers Row Lit Fest in September. So that's going to be kind of cool. Live, Local, and Progressive weekdays 2 to 5 here on WCPT, AM 820, heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. For our listeners tonight, driving it home, Elliot Serrano and Ken Mejia will be filling in for Patty Vasquez, and their guests include Jody Ann Martin, the snarky correspondent. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, AM 820, the Heartland Signal website, tune in, YouTube, and Facebook. And then Monday on Choose Views, I'll be joined by Dalton George, mayor of the town of Boone, North Carolina, and Preston Blakely, mayor of Fletcher, North Carolina. Together, they co-host the podcast, Do You Even Live Here? I say that oftentimes about people that complain about things in Chicago that may not actually live in Chicago. You've heard me say that before, but looking forward to having Dalton and Preston with us. Mike Nellis, Democratic strategist and host of Endless Urgency podcast, and Barbara McQuaid, legal analyst, law professor, and former United States attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, will be joining me as well. And she's also the co-host of the podcast Sisters in Law. Barb's got one of those, as you know, long resumes. Tomorrow on It's the Democracy Stupid, Edwin will be talking to Adam Klasfeld, founder and editor-in-chief of All Rise News, and Nicholas Grossman, teaching assistant professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. Daniel Nichanian, founder and editor-in-chief of Bolts, and Reverend Earl J. Fisher, senior pastor of the Abyssinian Baptist Church, founder of the Up the Vote 901, and author of the Rev. Albert Cleage Jr. Very, very busy Saturday for Edwin and his show, It's the Democracy Stupid. So there you go, guys. We're busy, as always, keeping it busy, keeping it moving forward. Okay, when I said earlier in the show that I wanted to talk a little bit about in today's segment of Something to Chew On, I wanted to give some favor, some love again to the late Dolly Parton and her recent passing. And I wanted to do it from a perspective that may seem a little bit political, but only in the sense that in this segment of Something to Chew On, as always, I want you guys to be able to have something to take away as a nugget to share with other folks. Dolly Parton was a lot of things. And I think that I heard more from more people this week, and I heard more people say that they actually had to stop watching some of the things on social media. They had to stop scrolling. They had to stop listening to some of the songs and some of the clips and the bits of humor and all those things that are being aired, because it brought tears to their eyes. It made them sad, but it said at the same time it made them feel so happy that they got to experience Dolly Parton in their lifetime. Well, here's the thing, as I look at this, and call me crazy. I went through some of that same, transition of emotion where I said, okay, I've got to stop listening to things and stop watching things. And I got to get some of Dolly's songs out of my head, because it didn't make me sad, but it made me, in a weird sort of way, it made me proud. And let me tell you why I say it this way. I think that part of the reason, and we all are going to have our assessments and observations. I'm going to say it this way. I saw people post things like, you took the wrong 80-year-old. And you know what we're referring to. And I'm not going to go down that path. When I started to really think about that, how I looked at this may seem counterintuitive. I think that Dolly's passing, what it should do, amidst all of the great songs and the great movies and the great appearances on shows and the humor and all the great things that she did to help society, I think what we also have to take away from this with regard to Dolly is that's the side of humanity that we should want to be on. And it's sad and it's hurtful that we lost her, but she had run her race. As my mother used to say, she ran her race, and she ran it extremely well. So if there's so many things to take from Dolly passing, but one thing we should all take for certain is to maximize your life, to run your race at full speed. And, every now and again, you may have to slow down and catch your breath. But the lessons that come from Dolly are the things that we should take away. And she reminds us that we should be fighting for each other to our last breath, which is what she did. She reminds us that we should be fighting and pulling for each other and finding the best things possible that we can do to help out humanity. That's the thing, I think, that why so many people have been, emotional about her passing. Folks across the planet, good Lord, across the planet, y'all, beef eaters and all the rest. She reminds us to maximize our life, to do the best you can with what you have, and to do your dead level best to help as many people that you can along the way. You're not going to get it right all the time. You're not going to be perfect. You're going to be perpetually, as I've said so many times, in cleanup on aisle 7 mode. But I think that what was so great about Dolly is that she had an ease about her that you knew what she was saying was real. She wasn't making any of this stuff up. And she was constantly looking to find ways to help people and to make sure that she ran her race at full speed. And she did that to the very end. So for all that we know in terms of how she was struggling with cancer. So that's what we want to take away. And we're going to fight and push and pull and tug and all these things in this crazy environment that we're in right now, this political environment that we are in, the stress and strife that's coming from this administration and so many people. We know that we've got great political divides. But Dolly, if anything, she represented what we can do better to come together, to work together, to make sure that we are actually looking out for each other, that we are finding additional ways or looking around the corner to see what might be another way to help somebody out, and making sure that she, to use the old phrase from track and field, that she ran through the tape. So guys, in Dolly's name, all of us should run through the tape. Let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. Thanks for being with us this morning. Let me get right to a couple of the quick concerts before we bring Karen on. Let's see, Yo-Yo. Someone went to see Yo-Yo Ma. Wow, I'm positively jealous about that. Let's see what we got. Andy says Yo-Yo Ma for a benefit for Ukraine. What else do we have this morning? We got some other ones. We'll get to them. Someone's actually, this is so cool. People are sending me tickets of concerts that they went to see. Wow, this is really cool, guys. I'm glad this is why I asked the question. Pink Floyd in 1977, Soldier Field. Rush in 1977, Hammond Civic Center, B.B. King, Taste of Chicago, 2009. Wow, good stuff. All right. Well, it's Friday. We'll read a few more of those later, but it's Friday, so let's go to the road lady, my road dog, Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast. Good morning, Karen. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for having me in. I'm just going to put you on speaker so you can get a hello from our crew that are headed out to D.C. for the March on Washington for the 63rd anniversary of the MLK March. I'm going to put you on speaker. Everybody say hello.
Hello. Hey, guys. How about that? Well, shout out to everybody. I'm glad you guys are on the road. I hope everybody is safe and enjoying it, and nobody is too worried about anything other than just having fun and going to do the great work in memory of Dr. King and so many other civil rights fighters. Congratulations to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, cool. Karen.
We watched the eclipse, the partial eclipse, all night long. Walter has been driving. He's been driving the bus. So I really appreciate it because I don't know if I could have handled the fog that we had to deal with. But so we're very excited. I really, and we all appreciate your assessment and your take on Dolly Parton's life and what she did and how she can be an example for all of us. And again, like you said, make your life count, make it meaningful. And I mean, I liken her to like a female Mr. Rogers or Jimmy Carter with rhinestones. I really, she was a lovely person, and like, she didn't really do politics, but she did politics by virtue of her work. Do you know what I mean? That's right. Yeah, the things that she did very much align with the Democratic Party. So, I guess in that sense, she did.
She didn't need to. She didn't need. Here's the thing that's so interesting about that. And I know a lot of people have been trying to figure that part out in the last couple of days. She didn't need to say it. She didn't need to say I was aligned. This is what I think is unique about this with Dolly. She did not need to say I'm aligned with a particular political party or group. She was aligned with humanity. She was aligned with doing the right things by people. And truthfully, Karen, you know this, that doesn't need a label. It doesn't need a party definition. She just did the work. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it just so happens, though, that it does align with the Democratic Party. And
absolutely.
Our principles and our agenda and our worldview, where you treat one another like with kindness. You truly believe in a free society, a free country where you can worship who you want to worship, love who you want to love, be who you want to be. And just people, the powers that be, just leave us alone so that we can truly live free and, live our best lives, and stop getting in the way of that, of all of the progress that we want to make.
And that's a big part of it, and that's why I felt that I wanted to say some additional words, particularly today, and I think that for the people out there that quote unquote are going to get tired of hearing about Dolly, that's more of a reflection of them than the people that are going to talk about Dolly and have good memories of her and all the rest. And I don't think there's really going to be a lot of that out there. If it is, it's going to come from the opposite political party to what Dolly actually believed in. I won't say she believed in one party or the other, but like you said, Karen, her actions, her work, the things that she did and fought for leans more in the direction of what the Democratic Party is trying to do. So I'm blessed and grateful and honored to have known her through the work that she did. If I never had the opportunity, like so many people didn't, to meet her, we know her through the work that she did, and that's so very cool. Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah, she just had one of those personalities where, you could relate to her, and she was just, she was somebody that you might run into or, a family member. She just had that familiarity about her.
She's the person that would have held the door for anybody just because that's how she saw the world. And I dare say that where you're headed and the recognition of Dr. King would have aligned very much with what Dolly did and how she lived her life. She would have been one to truly identify with the phrases and the statements from Dr. King's speech at that rally, because she would have lived. She lived that way. There was no woulda. She lived that way. So it's nice to be able to make those connections. Yeah. I was thinking
the same thing, and I'm just going to say that it is that spirit of getting out and doing and being a part of a community, a larger community. And I think, we're all living through such a terrible time right now, and it's really hard to kind of process it all, filter what we need to, take the things that we really need to focus on, and focus on those, and, put the other things, the noise, in a different basket and just kind of keep it moving. But, for her, I think the thing for me that hit so hard, and I think, the whole purpose of us going for this march is, like you said, I mean, to get out and do something. As Kamala Harris said, get out, do something. We need to make sure that we are looking out for one another. And that is very much something that, when we go on this day into D.C. with throngs of people, that we are going to be looking out for each other and being there for each other and supporting one another. And it's just in the spirit of Martin Luther King, as well as Dolly Parton and all of the helpers.
Yeah. One of the things that we've said, I've said it, you've said it, and so many others have said it over the years, is that, we are larger, bigger, stronger. And when we come together, that's even more of a representation of that. And that's what so many of the rallies and protests last year and this year have shown. And obviously, the March on Washington was probably the most visible and probably the most known of all the marches, because it was about helping everybody. And you've heard me say this a bunch of times, Karen. Everybody that listens to my show has heard me say this. It's always been when the people who were being left behind and being hurt and being, punished by the system, when they came together, when we've come together, that's when the powers that be have been at most their biggest worry, because they know that this really is about the power of the people. And if you look at any of the things that are going on in communities, if we look at something like data centers, the data centers are about taking communities apart. They're not about building communities. They're not about making communities stronger. And I think about this from the perspective of the communities that are being harmed are the ones that need the most help when it comes to something like a data center. And they're not bringing jobs to communities. They're there to extract value and resources rather than putting it into. Conversely, what you're doing by going to Washington, D.C. in memory of this great march and in memory of the great leaders of the past, it's about bringing people together. It's not about pulling people apart. And, literally, it's literally about saying, come on, y'all, let's get on the bus and let's go get something done. And that's kind of the interesting irony of it all. But, I'm not ashamed or at all in any way other than positive to talk about Dolly and to talk about her putting back into the system, putting back into the communities, and making sure that the communities are to the best that she was able to thrive, as well as just survive. And I think that's we get to repeat that because it's part of the bigger picture of what we're trying to do over and over again. And nobody gets to tell us that we should stop talking about it, because that in and of itself is yet another way for those that are against us to try to pull us apart.
Sure. And boy, oh boy, the one thing that is really bringing people together, regardless of what side of the aisle you vote on, are the data centers that are threatening so many communities. And people like Greg Abbott and other Republican legislators throughout the country are really starting to get nervous on this topic. And they're kind of walking some stuff back. So I feel that we know that they are afraid. Donald Trump and the Republicans and the DOJ, they wouldn't be, and the USPS, for what it is right now. Of course, it's been so undermined and hurt by DeJoy and, the first Trump term, it breaks my heart to make them a part of this, to say that the USPS is, one of the organizations that are trying to take away people's rights to vote.
But it's not. I mean, that's the crazy thing. When we,
exactly.
Right now, everybody, let me just say this, and I know this may sound a little bit corny, but when you go into a post office right now, give a special nod to the folks behind the counter working at the post office, because they're catching hell from the C-suite. They're catching hell from the are they called governors? Yeah,
the board of governors. Yeah,
the board. They're catching hell right now. Be nice to the postal workers. Be nice to your mail delivery person, because they're being given the incorrect, inappropriate label indirectly as the persons that or the entities that are affecting voting, mail-in balloting particularly. It ain't on the people that you see every day. It's the people that are in the C-suite that are causing this drama. So give an extra nod to the person at the post office, and let them know that you support them and that you got their back, because they need it at any time. They truly need it right now, Karen.
Yes, they do. Yeah, and actually, Walter, who is driving us to D.C., he is a union president for the postal workers, for our drivers. Yep. So he's in it. He's the gentleman that we all get together with to support because, of course, the Republican Party has been trying to degrade and undermine the USPS for years because in the attempts to privatize it. And so we every Saturday are out there 10 o'clock in the morning protesting and supporting our postal workers and calling for the stop to privatization by the Republican Party. And we're out at 7500 West Roosevelt Road in front of the Taco Bell, and the distribution center's right behind it. So if people in Chicago want to help out, come on over 10 a.m. on Saturdays.
Absolutely. Karen, let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. If you are just tuning in, I'm Richard Chew. Thanks for being with us this morning. We are on the phone with our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast, and she and her crew are on the road to D.C. to be part of the celebration and recognition of the March on Washington's 63rd anniversary. Karen, welcome back to the show. We've got some really great responses to my question of the day. About concerts. The first time I saw Trans-Siberian Orchestra at the Allstate Arena about 25 years ago. That's a big one. Let's see what we got. R&B bar rock band in the 1980s. That was from someone down in Florida. Let's see what else we got. We'll get a couple more. Country and Western fan. Country and Western concerts and music. Troy from Forest Park got to see Bruce Springsteen way back in 1980 in the Uptown Theater. How about that? Wow. Well, listen, Karen, I know you're on the road and you guys are being safe, but
I just want to say mine, Rush, just last month was my favorite so far. It was fantastic. And Troy, you're in Forest Park. Come on out on Saturdays at 10 a.m. out in front of the Taco Bell on Roosevelt Road.
There you go, Troy. You've been invited, so make your way out there. Make your way out there. Hey, Karen, there's a little bit of echo in the background. I don't know if someone else has their phone on, but maybe they can turn that off so they don't have the little bit of background echo.
Well, I don't know if people have their phone on, but it just could be where we're at. So,
it's much better. Much better.
Okay.
So listen, you posted, I wanted to talk a little bit about your article this week, another disappointing day in the obituaries from your Resistance Journal on Substack. And you talked about the way in which Dr. Abdul El-Sayed really made fun and really handled the interview that he had on Fox with Jesse Waters. And I spoke a little bit about that earlier in the week, but the thing that I really saw and liked and enjoyed about that is the way in which he was not willing to let Jesse make nonsense out of the time that this interview was supposed to be budgeted for. And that, it was Dr. Saeed that was trying to get the interview back on track.
Yeah. I mean, what is their obsession with people's genitals? First of all, what a bunch of weirdos. Like, Jesse Waters is one of the biggest weirdos out there. And it's, I just loved the way he kept bringing it back to, affordability. That thing that Donald Trump doesn't like to talk about anymore. And now he says it's a hoax. I mean, people are really struggling. And so, I mean, really, I don't think that Jesse Waters and the Fox narratives are playing the way they used to. And, we know that is evidenced by all of these Trump voters that are being interviewed. Like, there was a bunch in Iowa that were interviewed, and they had some really choice words for Donald Trump. I hope they make the connection, though, that it is the Republican Party. too, and that they have to go and they have to vote in these states accordingly and get Democrats elected to your legislatures as well, because your Republicans in your own state are not in it for you. They are in it just like Donald Trump and all of the senators and people in the House of Representatives. They're in it for themselves, the millionaires, billionaires, and multinational corporations. And I think that it's finally starting to dawn on people and we're seeing very clearly the difference.
It's stark. And what I thought about with that interview, and there's a couple pieces or layers to this cake. I thought about how much of a lightweight in this business, if you will, and maybe even in life in general, that Jesse Waters is. He really just showed how much of a lightweight that he is. And he also showed how much the people at Fox are really just lightweights when it comes to, I mean, it is entertainment. It is not about news. It is Fox Entertainment. He was unwilling, not allowed, whatever it was, to actually have a conversation about things that matter to a lot of their listeners. A lot of the Fox listeners deem themselves as regular Americans, the patriots, not the people in the big offices with the big salaries and all that. But he would not allow Dr. El Sayed to talk about the issues that really matter. He wanted to talk about things that were, not even about culture wars. It was just a very personal issue for a family to decide to go through. And so it showed how much of a lightweight he is, but it also showed how non-serious Fox News, Fox Entertainment, Fox at large really are. And this is purely about them grabbing likes and continuing to be the lick spittle for this president. That's what it was.
That's right. That's
and
right.
People,
because,
go ahead. Sorry.
So, I was just going to say, Fox viewers are losing their health insurance as well. I mean, the ACA, not Obamacare, the ACA was very popular with Republicans and Democratic voters alike. And so, when they finally figured out, that they like the ACA, now their subsidies have gone away and now their hospitals are closing. And, those Fox News is pretty much the exclusive news, quote unquote, news source in their communities, and they're having their hospitals shut down. They're losing their subsidy. So it's no longer affordable, and a cancer diagnosis is a death sentence.
Yep. And it's not because they were not told. I circle back to this because in this moment where we're talking about people who've been serving and doing everything that they can to make the country better, I'm no longer going to allow anybody to say that Kamala Harris did not reach out to them or attempt to reach them. She made it clear. And we know that Hillary Clinton did. And I've said this a number of times, and I won't stop saying it. People made a conscious decision. Hillary Clinton did it first. Kamala Harris did it most recently, made it clear, coming up on 2 years ago, because we were coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the DNC. She made it clear last night, but if I got my dates right, 2 years ago, that this was going to happen. She did not mince words. She told people here in Chicago at our DNC, at our Democratic National Convention, that Donald Trump, if back in the White House a second time, would do exactly what he's doing. Now, she didn't say that he was going to do that to black folks, to the LGBTQ community, to the Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, Asian, Jewish community. She said to the country and to the world that this would happen. And that includes all the people in the rural communities that are white voters that chose to not vote for her. And so now they're struggling and having to go through the same hell. And so this is why sometimes, folks, you got to get out of your own way and do, as we wrap up, Karen, like Dolly tried to do, is make it about people, make it about us, and not make it about race, about culture, about gender, about religion, and all those other labels that we oftentimes will slide into. And stop fighting with the people who know more about this than you do.
And listen to the people that to the truth, not, stop allowing yourselves to be lied to. It seems like they really love it. It's their kink. But
turn Fox News off, America. Just turn it off.
Turn it off. Exactly. But before I go, I just want to say, so Anita and I dropped our True Blue Politics podcast, episode 67, and we had Chris Cluey, the former NFL punter, and he's running for California's Assembly, number 72 in Orange County. And we had a great conversation. He's such a lovely guy. And, if people can head over to our Patreon, that would be amazing. Go to our YouTube, like and subscribe, ring the bell. And so you get notifications when our dailies drop and our biweekly episodes. We would really appreciate it.
Fantastic, and we appreciate you being on from the road, and a number of listeners are chiming in. Happy that you and I are chopping it up yet again on a Friday. So, Karen, and to everybody that's on the bus, please be safe. Stay close to each other. Watch out for each other while you're there. Make sure you guys stay hydrated because it's supposed to be a little bit warm in DC as it can be. And just stay safe and keep doing the great work that you're doing, okay?
Thank you. And how big of a paint chip do you want from the reflection pool?
Well, I'm missing a couple of corners on a room that I'm working on, and I thought that would work out real nicely if I had maybe a 12 by 12. No, go 6 by 6 because you can slide that in your backpack. Is that cool?
Good. Perfect. All right. I got you. I'll see you next week, and I'll bring it in.
Give me a 6 by 6. That'd be perfect.
All right. Thanks, Richard. Love you guys. Love everybody. Have a safe weekend.
You too. Be well. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Oh, Lord. Karen's going to get in trouble, y'all, grabbing some tile for me, but that's okay. That's how she rolls. We're going to take a quick break, guys. When we come back, we'll be talking with another great voice, Amy McDonald, host of the Foolish Optimist podcast. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chu. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chu's Views.
Would you label yourself a capitalist? What would you characterize your views as?
I'm a pragmatic problem solver. I come from a completely different, very serious profession. I'm a pediatrician who's worked in children's hospitals for 20 years. Every day I went to work and I would walk into a hospital room of sick or injured children. I would work with whoever I needed to work with to solve their problems. I wouldn't go on news to blame people for their problems. I would roll up my sleeves and get the job done. We deserve a senator who does the same. Darlene has no legislative record to run on. She has no experience to run on. So she is resorting to the typical national Republican attack lines that have no basis in reality. She's up there calling me radical, reading from her legal pad. And I would like to ask Darlene what exactly she thinks is so radical about believing that every working South Carolina family should be able to afford to put food on the table and keep the lights on at the end of the month. What is so radical about thinking that when you're sick, you should be able to afford health care? What is so radical about thinking that if your community doesn't want a data center, there shouldn't be a data center built in your community? What is so radical about thinking that every county in South Carolina should have an OBGYN? In my opinion, Darlene Graham is the radical, and I would love to see her pivot to talking about actual solutions for the problems that we're facing in South Carolina.
Well, that wasn't our guest, but I know our guest has something to say about what we just heard. That was Dr. Annie Andrews, who's been here on Choose Views a number of times, and we've been grateful to have her on the show, talking about and reacting to Darlene Graham's criticism of her, calling her a radical. I've got somebody that can have a few thoughts and comments about that. Good morning and welcome to the show, Amy McDonald, the host of The Foolish Optimist. Good morning, Amy. Talk to us for a minute.
Good morning. You
want to say, woo, child.
I want to say so many things, but I'm working on a campaign down here in North Carolina. We're getting called radical as well because, another healthcare professional is running to get into Congress, and she's saying, oh, every American should have healthcare. Yeah. Basic healthcare. Yeah, there should be more options. Yes, we should be able to get more if we need it, but we live in the richest country in the world and people are starving. Kids are going to bed hungry. Kids aren't going to school fed. We force them to go to school and we don't feed them. That's crazy. We've come to this inflection moment in time where people think that helping your neighbor is not the answer, but the way that we built this country and the way that we expanded West, obviously Manifest Destiny, that's a whole thing. We can talk about that, but people survived because they helped each other. Mm-hmm. People survived because they looked after their neighbor. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I prefer fortunately, human beings are community-driven organisms. We have to look out for each other. And if you can stand up in front of a room and say that you're comfortable with kids going hungry in this country, I don't know. I'm rebranding it. I think that's un-American. Frankly, un-American. I think that's really un-American and gross.
Listen, Amy, sometimes the simplest words that may not be the ones that are the most eloquent, whatever words we want to say, and you've got a pretty extensive vocabulary, are just, it's just easier to say it's gross. Because it is. Yeah. It's just gross. It's disgusting. I mean, a couple of things went through my mind when you were making that, when you were presenting that thought process. First one that came to my mind, and it's going to sound really weird to folks. I was watching the movie Bonnie and Clyde a few weeks ago with my wife, and there were a couple of scenes where people who were, in camps trying to survive themselves helped these criminals, Bonnie and Clyde, with the little bit of resources that they had, because they saw two people who were criminals. And of course, this is a depiction of their life and all that. Yeah. But the message behind that was to help people. And I know that some people might say that's kind of corny, that's kind of whatever. But in a week where one of our most treasured patriots, true patriots, we lost, it's about helping folks. And to have anybody, period, on the Republican Party or Republican part of this conversation try to defend not making sure that children have meals at school, not make sure that everybody, when they get sick or injured or have something happen, gets cared for. You have no right to show your behind up in church on Sunday if you call yourself a Christian.
Oh, sorry. Man. It's true though, right? And I am the host of the podcast, and I was interviewing Jared Sluss. He's running for state senate in Alabama, District 7, one of the most flippable seats in Alabama right now. If you haven't checked him out, you need to. But I cannot tell you how refreshing it was to speak to someone who is a Christian, who literally just calls Christians out for this type of crap, right? A lot of these people stand up and they use the Christian faith to get votes, and then they turn around. If the election's on Tuesday, if they can harm you by Wednesday, they're going to. And it is just the only word to say. I can't say it on here, but it's crap. It's just a tactic. And this is part of why people don't have trust in our politicians, is because a lot of them will say anything that they want. And we do have this new generation of politicians that are like, oh, well, if caring for people makes me radical, call me radical.
Call me radical. Yeah, just I'll wear what are those A-frame signs around? I'll wear one around that says I'm a radical. Yeah, yeah.
Watch out! Here I come.
Here I come. And I also thought about when you were talking earlier. I thought about the song, and I hope I get this right, by NWA, "Fight the Power." You know, and I thought about an earlier version of this by the Isley Brothers called Fight the Power from way back in the 70s. But, you know, that's really where we are right now. And the people that are on the left that have sort of this religious bona fides, the James Tallarico, your interview you just conducted, John Fugelsang, the host of show on Sirius, and his latest best-selling book, you know, I just drew a blank on the book, but they're all saying no to the folks on the Christian right. You got it wrong. You all have it wrong. You're representing this the wrong way. And you don't if you don't know what you're talking about, shut the hell up. And if you do know the truth of the scripture, if you want to use that as an arbiter, then that's even worse. You know, if you don't know what you're talking about and you're just running on, that's one thing. Shut up. But if you do know what you're talking about, then you're telling lies and you are defacing whatever faith it is, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, the list goes on. If I left anybody out, you're defacing the faith that you say that you aspire to. Hypocrite. Jesus did not.
He didn't like those.
No, as they say.
I expressly remember that. You know,
you paid attention that day.
I went to private Christian school for the majority of my schooling. So like I had Bible class every day from kindergarten to 7th grade. The Bible is imprinted on my mind, and as much as I would like to shake it out, I can't take it away and make space for other things because it happened when I was so young. So when people try to use the Bible against me, I'm like, I don't go to church anymore. I have a relationship with something. I'm not sure what it is. I like to picture my version of God as basically Angela Bassett. I think that's probably what she looks like. More Mother Earth style, but like, you can't catch me on scripture because I had to memorize so much of it. Yeah. And we know that Jesus cared about all the people. He cared about everyone. He cared about the sick. He cared about the poor. He literally says, if they're hungry, give them food. Yep. If they need water, give them water. If they need shelter, you give them shelter. And that's like, you know, not for nothing. Even if you want to say you're not a Christian, that's actually also the fiscally responsible thing to do as well, right? We know that if we take care of our people, they'll invest themselves back into our economy, into our communities, and they will take care of the people around them. That's how it works.
That's how it works.
And I find your Bonnie and Clyde story really interesting, though, because it does seem like right now the people who have the least are willing to give the most. And I know Dolly Parton's the exception, but it's, you know, Elon Musk said he'd fix world hunger, and then he walked it back.
Yeah, he did. Well,
we forget about that.
That's what this is the thing, guys. We hear the folks say make these grandiose statements and then walk them back. I'd rather you just not say it. You know, just STFU. Don't say it because you don't mean it. You're only doing it to buy yourself some time to get to the table where the other goods are, so you can get your part of that. And that's all that Musk did. Is he bought time so that he could get back to the table to get more goods so that he could go on and do more things that are hateful to this country. Amy, let's take a quick break. John Fugelsang's book is The Separation of Church and Hate. I can't believe I couldn't remember that. Great book. Let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew, hanging out with Amy McDonald. We'll keep it locked in for more of Chew's Views. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. Thanks for being with us this morning. There's so much that I would love to talk to Amy about, and we'll get in as much as we can this morning. I think the primary goal when folks like Amy and I have a chance to talk is to let you guys know that we do care and that we're going to fight like hell to make sure that we bring as many people to the room, to the tent as possible to make sure that we are able to put us back on a track that ain't perfect, but it is not going to be as crazy and as bumpy and exclusionary as it has been the last 10 years, even during Joe Biden's 4 years, which weren't perfect. And it shouldn't have been, because then we have nothing to work toward, in my humble belief. It allows us to go, okay, we still got, with this good guy and this good gal as president and vice president, no disrespect to anybody for how I said that, we still recognize the gaps that we have in our system. So even with someone that's doing it the right way, the aspirational part of who we are is what we're trying to, to push forward. And so, I think sometimes people might get it wrong, not get it wrong, but not realize that that's what we're doing. We're just constantly fighting forward. That's what being progressive is all about, is to move things forward. And Amy is one of those voices. And I really admire the work that you've been doing. I know you're balancing two different things right now. We can't really talk too much about candidates that because of all the stuff with fairness and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, the principles that you live behind in terms of massive action, taking some risk, maintaining hope. Talk a little bit about that, Amy.
You know, I'm putting a Substack article out about this today because anyone that's ever done anything that has caused a little bit of cognitive dissonance in their brain, and I'm talking about like just creating massive change, whether that's leaving a job, leaving a partner that's no longer healthy, or what have you. You know this feeling when you've decided you need change. Where you are doesn't help you anymore. It's hurting you. It's harming you. You have to go after it with like reckless abandon, even though you don't know the end process just yet. And it is this thing that our brain does to us. It says that, oh, well, I'm here and it's safe because I'm here. And it could literally be hell on earth. Like truly, quite literally could be hell on earth. And I think we're getting to this inflection point with change in the United States. I'm not sure though, because we do have people trying to keep us exactly where we are. And I say that broadly. It's not just conservatives. It's not just the Christian nationalists. It is people on the left too, who are like, oh, well, if this progressive person can't win, we've got to shift gears. I saw that with the Montana race, telling a Democratic nominee to drop out, and people were like, let's go with this safe bet, this white man, right? And you're like, well, the white men have gotten us here. and where is here? The police are killing 3 people per day, and they have been for over a decade. We have standing armies in our street. We have families being ripped to shreds. We've deported 2.5 to 3 million people, depending on what numbers you look at. And I ask, are we great or not? We still don't have health care. We've depleted our entire weapons cache. And so the thing that we're known for, we don't even have anymore. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it's a moment in time where you need to have a lot of faith, and you actually have to take this like organized action in the right direction to get where you need to go. And you have to understand that if you do the right things, you're going to get where you're going. Yes, maybe it takes longer. I think about Kamala's speech after she lost in 2024, and I'm going to butcher it, but she basically said, we keep fighting because when we fight, we win.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. You can love Kamala, you can hate Kamala, but like that is the truth.
Right. The truth doesn't change. If you may not like the thing, but if the thing is presenting you with truth, maybe you should pay attention to it. Or
right.
And that's how I was hoping more people would be able to allow themselves to be. It was like you didn't have to be in love with her. But the message was pretty spot on. And as I said earlier, when Karen was on, when are folks going to slow down and listen to reason and smarts and scientists and, people that know what it's like. I saw this clip, Amy, and I'm you and I are very good at botching it, but at least we give credit to the message. And the messenger, but we try to eke out what's at the heart of this.
Yeah.
And a person basically said that, you mean to tell me that you're going to take all the years of research, all the time that someone put in medical school, all the years of time that they put in, all the other ways of learning the best they could about medicine, about science, and about the body and biology and physiology and physics in some cases. You're going to take that and kick it to the curb and listen to a person that said to the public that I've had worms eating my brain, and listen to another dude that said that everything is fake, whatever it is, and then try to put a guy who spent his years, meaning Dr. Fauci, learning this stuff cold. You're going to bring him up on charges, but you're going to listen to these other fools. So Amy and I are begging folks to slow your roll a little bit and listen to the people who have the experience, who have the knowledge, that have dedicated their lives, that have been up at 3:00 in the morning because it just didn't quite make sense. They needed to do a little bit more work to understand this thing that they were trying to perfect, which is the humankind. Listen to those folks, not these other yahoos out here who don't know what the hell they're talking about. And that you could put that on a number of things that are happening in our country right now, whether it be law,
Right.
whether it be medicine, whether it be the environment, whether it be going to war or not, and the list goes on. Listen to the folks who know what the hell they're talking about.
The attacks on Dr. Fauci are it's very interesting to me, right? Dr. Fauci is the reason why we have a cure for HIV and AIDS. Like, he is the reason. It's not a cure. It's a way to live with HIV and AIDS, right? He is the reason why many people have survived. And I do distinctly remember right before the pandemic in 2019, I was interviewing people who'd lived in New York City for over 30 years. At the time, I didn't know why. I really didn't. I just needed something. And I started talking to these people. And it really opened my eyes to the HIV and the AIDS crisis. And, you know, if you think our reaction to COVID was bad, the violence that was wielded against the LGBTQ plus community during HIV and AIDS is unbelievable. And Dr. Fauci literally said, you know what, there's a way to fix this. There's a way to make this better. There's a way to do this even when Ronald Reagan, I believe, never even said the word AIDS in any of
that's
his
what
entire
I recall not happening. Yes,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and they were like treating people like pariahs. Even doctors at the time wouldn't touch them, right? So like the nurses and the nuns of St. Vincent's Hospital, which was like ground zero in New York City, were the ones taking care of these men. And just it's a lifetime of service. Yeah. He didn't just do COVID. He did HIV and AIDS. He did SARS. He did Zika virus. He's been at the forefront of every single thing, like every single major health event you can think of in the last 50 years. And now people are saying, oh, you know, let's denigrate him because, like you said, this man with a brainworm who's an attorney, he's not a doctor, he's a lawyer. He's a lawyer. I like to remind you of that. He's not a doctor. He's an attorney. He's not a medical professional. And like when he got put in place, I actually was kind of excited, right? I was like, oh, a former addict. This is really good, actually, for the people of America. We have a problem with addiction in this country. And I thought maybe there was a portion of him that would approach addiction with compassion because he had been through it. It's like,
you, Amy, I love you and respect you even more, but you fell for the okie doke. You got head faked. You got head faked in the lane and got dunked on because dude has no. I mean, I get where you're coming from. I truly do. And
there was a sliver of hope. It wasn't
right. Like maybe. And that just, again, that's a reflection of you and your compassion and optimism, though, about where we might be able to go. Maybe we can get this moving in a direction. But now that it hasn't happened, the other side of Amy, like myself, comes out, which is, okay, dude, you're done. We're bringing out the big machine. You got to go. We gave you a shot. You lied to us, and you've done other things to make it worse for people, not better. It's time for you to go on a Thelma and Louise trip. And anybody can choose how they want to parse that in their brain. You can say what you want to about me saying it, but that's my little thing I use. He can go on a long Thelma and Louise trip, and y'all can figure out that to whatever you want to call it. Change equals risk plus mass action to get to hope. Amy McDonald is the host of the Foolish Optimist podcast. You guys can find it on where you get your podcast. And if you don't find it and follow it, that's on you, because I'm telling you, you're going to learn something from the guests that she has on her show to her passion about the work that she does. Amy, thanks as always for being with us. I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks. Does that sound cool?
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Have a good Friday.
I will. You too. Talk to you soon. Be safe.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. The number, of course, is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chu. Keep it locked in, because guess what? When we come back, we're going to be talking with another smart person. really, professor kind of smart. Professor Kevin Schultz will be with us here on Choose Views. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. If you're just tuning in, this is Choose Views. I'm Richard Chu. And if you're watching on Facebook Live or any of the other spots to catch us, Professor Kevin Schultz has got his non-ball cap due on this morning. But I can't tease him because we love him and we respect and appreciate what he brings to us every few weeks.
Nice pivot, Richard. Nice pivot.
Man, if we weren't on the air, I have something else I could say. Oh my goodness, good to see you. How you been?
I've been good. I mean, I got 6 kids who all started school, including myself. 5 kids and myself all started school on Monday. So it was a big week of transition for us, probably like many of our listeners going on right now. And I got a bunch in college. So I spent the last week ago moving everybody in. And now I'm just sad because my house is so quiet. And I'm happy because my house is so quiet.
Right.
I got these mixed emotions, right?
You go into a room and it's like no sound there. There'd normally be a sound and some rustling of papers and, and now you go in that room and it's crickets. But then you go to your favorite chair where you can sit and chill out. And you're like, woosah, this is perfect.
But I think I'm going to miss a lot of the higher prices we're experiencing because I go to the grocery store now and I have to buy for so many fewer people that I'm only spending, a couple $100 when I used to spend a lot more than that.
Well, you know how that goes. I know how you were raised. So that reduction now, that don't mean you spend it.
Oh, I'm spending it on tuitions. It's already out the door.
Oh my good. Yeah. I thought about you the other day because, I saw the kids in our neighborhood, making it back to school and all that. And, my wife and I are kind of nerdy in that regard. We want to make sure the kids in our community are safe and that they're crossing at the crosswalk. Don't cross in the middle of the street. Don't stand too close to the curb. Buses do turn on a sharp angle and large vehicles step back. Things the things that you want to do and make sure that the kids in the community are safe. So kudos to you because in many cases you've got to you're working with freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, grad students, and all the rest. So you got a big map of age of people. But applauds to you for being back in the mix again and helping us learn some things. Wow!
You want to hear a crazy statistic I got, Richard?
Talk to me.
All right. I'm a history professor, so I always look at the history of all this stuff. In 1980, so one fun parlor game that us historians like to do is we look at all the quality of life indices, inflation rates, healthcare, life expectancy, and we put Ronald Reagan's face in 1980, and we watch the graph move compared to all the other, major industrialized nations in the world. In 1980, 80% of a public university, 80% of that income that went to that public university came from the state, and 20% was paid in tuition by you and me. Mm-hmm. Now, 56 years later, or whatever, no, I'm not, 46 years later, 80% of the revenue that goes to a university comes from tuition, and only 20% comes from the state. Now, sure, there's some higher costs that go into running a university. Universities have been asked to do more than just educate kids. We got to do mental health stuff. We got to do all sorts of clubs. That's all fine. There's been some mission creep, sure, but there's also been the minimization of the amount of income that comes from the state and from the federal government. And that's why we're paying higher tuition. That's why me, with my 4 kids in college, am strapped in all these high tuition, even for in-state schools. I mean, you go to University of Illinois right now, it's $36,000 if your kid lives on campus. That's insane. That's insane.
Yep. Well, Doc, here's the thing to that. You mentioned Reagan. Many people, a lot of people know this, others may not, that he essentially destroyed our federal, I'll use the word route to college by taking because he destroyed what was going on in California. California used to be probably the most affordable of the top 10 states in the country. A place to go to college, which is because their California state system was so robust and so well funded. And then Reagan mucked that up. He took that federal, and now look where we are. So y'all should do some research on what Doc just presented about the shift in the revenue. If you really want to have a better peek into why college, or certainly one of the main tools as to why college is so expensive right now.
And the other part of it, so I grew up in California. My parents are the product of California state universities. I mean, UCLA, Berkeley, they were the pinnacle of higher education in the 1950s, 60s, 70s. They were public schools. My parents produced their tuition slip showing that they had to pay $25 or something like that a semester, some ridiculously low amount. It was still some money back in 1967 or whatever, but it wasn't anything like the percentage of income that we have to put up with now. And they were getting high quality education, high quality education. And now one of the things, I made the mistake of bringing my children to their grandparents' house in California, and they looked up and said, wait a minute, it's January and it's 72 degrees and we can go to the beach. So I have 2 of my kids that went back to state schools in California. My mom and dad are excited. Thanksgivings are going to go off this year because they're back to the motherland. But now we're paying out-of-state tuition. And California's decided that they're going to jack up prices for out-of-state tuition just so their in-state kids can get more financial aid, which I respect.
Right.
You got to get the money from somewhere.
Yep.
But it is no longer this commitment to universal education. There's no longer this commitment to the notion that we need to have an educated citizenry, and that's going to sort of set the whirlwind in where at my university, UIC, every dollar that gets put into UIC spins out $7 to the greater Chicago and Illinois income, just with creation, job creation, with company creation, with workers that go out there. So these universities are actually revenue generators if you look at the long-term output of them. But that's not what the universities are looking for. And we've had one party in particular that's been pushing back, let's say, against critical thinking skills of the citizenry because they want to continue this narrative that universities, are just bastions of the left and we're able to indoctrinate our students and things like this.
It's heartbreaking, but it takes the fight. It goes back to what Amy said a moment ago about the risk and massive action and massive energy to shift the things that we want to have. And universities for such a long time, particularly state universities, were known for taking in lots of information, taking in the people that wanted to see change for everyone. And, President Barack Obama, former President Obama, was kind of, talked about negatively because he said that one of the big arcs of change in our country is at the doorstep of Ronald Reagan. I'm paraphrasing. But it's true because so many things that took place during Reagan's term as governor, but also certainly as president, have been they were the seeds for so many of the things that we have now as problems when it comes to education, when it comes to unions, when it comes to wages. And so sometimes we do have to, when we look at history, we do have to stop and go back and say, where did this start? Where did this come from? Because part of the fix, this gets into the whole thing around how, the best doctors do the best work because they ask you the questions about what you did, what you've been doing to get you to where you have this pain point. And I think that one of the things that the Republicans have been doing very well is to make talking about history a bad thing. but history teaches us so much in the moments of why and how we got here.
Yeah, I mean, Reaganomics is, well, Ronald Reagan's tenure from 1980 to 1988 is generally considered by historians to be the end of what we call the New Deal order. So starting in the 1930s with the Great Depression with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, all of a sudden there was this tremendous commitment to the commonweal, to providing for the neediest among us, for investing in our social programs, investing in education, investing in the postal service, investing in things like Social Security, which was invented in FDR. Now we have Medicare and Medicaid as sort of the big moments in this creation of this Social Security network. And then it is starting in the 1980s with Ronald Reagan that we see the end of this New Deal order, as a famous historian named Gary Gerstle called it. And, you know, it was Reaganomics. It was a 3-part program of Reaganomics, which was lower taxes on the rich, cut social services to pay for that, and then ignore budget altogether and increase spending on the military. And that's basically the formula we've been living with from the right for the last 46 years. And so us historians have a lot of debate on whether or not Trump is just the manifestation, sort of the continuation point of those changes wrought by Ronald Reagan, or if he is something new and sui generis. My argument is he's been both. He's sort of been a continuation of this, but he's not an ideologue. He doesn't care about ideas. He doesn't care about Reaganomics. He cares about corruption, kleptocracy, enriching himself in his own little circle. And so he's using the formula of Reaganomics to destroy a lot of the political norms, things you and I have talked about in the past.
It's interesting, and I was thinking about this in terms of where we are with socialism, and I know it's a big topic. Before we go to the break, let's take a quick stab at it. We may come back to this after the break in terms of that and voting right now. But what would you just define in the most succinct way that you can what socialism is? Because socialism, well, let me stop there. Go for it. What would you define it as being?
Okay, so I'm a historian, so I'm going to do a quick historical analysis. But there was socialism before there was communism. There was a sense of commitment to the social. And we have that today. We pay for paved roads. We pay for our elementary school kids. We pay for crosswalks. That's part of our taxes, and it goes to enhance the social. Society is enhanced by our taxes. So we currently have socialism, as I'm sure most of the viewers know. Now, then the question becomes is how far do we expand those social programs? Then you get Karl Marx coming along in the 1830s, 1840s, 1850s, 1860s, and he's put this big bugaboo of communism out there. Communism never existed. It doesn't exist. It's in a society that is so socialized that it actually doesn't need a government to function because the social is so committed to enhancing everybody's well-being that there doesn't need to be somebody who's adjudicating how the modes of production get sent out. So there's never been a communist state. That's just been a target that a lot of socialists, but not every socialist, has had. So socialism can lead to communism, but there are many socialists who don't want socialism to end in communism. There are many socialists, like, let's say, even though he resisted the term, like FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And all he wanted to do was preserve capitalism, which is a sense of economy that's based on individual growth of wealth, individual freedom to create companies and businesses that will enrich themselves, and then tax those people so that taxation could expand social programming so that there's a certain floor below which no American citizen would fall between. So we need to have a debate about where that floor lies and what the consensus among the American population. More than 80% of Americans think that we have too much wealth at the top and we need to raise the floor. Now, the use of the name democratic socialism has both been somewhat accurate, but it's also been a gift to Donald Trump because he says, oh, these people are just communism. And we're going to hear more and more about that as the midterms come on. But all socialism is, see, this is what I do. I give you a historical answer and then I define it at the end.
That's why I asked.
Here's what socialism is. It's just a commitment to the social. It's a commitment by us to expand our gifts and our well-being and our commitment to society at large so that there's not a floor below which the most impoverished, the most needy among us will fall. Now, where that is, we can have a healthy debate. But right now, we already have a commitment to roads, to schools, to certain free healthcare, for taking care of our elderly in the manner of Social Security payments. We do have some social programs, and we need to raise those up, especially as inflation goes up, and especially as more and more of the wealth goes up to the top 1%.
To me, there's a visual, there's a physics visual that we should be using right now, and that is the inverted pyramid. The inverted pyramid is eventually going to topple over on itself because it can't sustain if the bottom doesn't have enough of a base to sustain what's at the top. It's just physics. And I don't mean to oversimplify it in relationship to what and how you just explained that, which means that you and I should be writing a book together about it. But to that end, we have a society that doesn't understand that is where we really are, and that communism is viewed as bad. I think that people should be more concerned about dictatorship rather than communism. So, Doc, let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. If you're just tuning in, it's me again hanging out with Professor Kevin Schultz. I refer to him as Doc. That's an affectionate way of me showing him the love and respect that we have for the hard work that he's put in all these years and his just focus on helping us better understand why our history is one of the best tools that we have in terms of how we can move forward. We can't deny our history. We can maybe argue about it, debate about how it is, how it came about, what it means, but it exists. It's not like it doesn't exist. In many ways, if we get rid of our history, it's kind of like getting rid of the foundation of who we are, good, bad, and in the middle. And one of those pieces, Karen Byrne is heading to Washington with some of her friends right now on the anniversary of the Great March, Dr. King's March, and that was about balancing out society, and it certainly was about voting. And right now we are in a dogfight when it comes to mail-in ballots. And give us your take on this right now, Professor.
On mail-in ballots, well, I'd say yesterday was a good day for democracy. I'm surprised to get good news on this after the seesaw that we had for the last week. But yesterday, as you know, what the judge that had been weighing whether or not mail-in ballots could be allowed, the Supreme Court weighed in. It was all over the place, and it took me a long time to sort of piece together what was going on. But essentially what happened yesterday was that a federal judge said, it is too late for us to stop mail-in ballots for the midterms. We need to allow these to move forwards. She had previously supported the Supreme Court, which had supported the U.S. Postal Service's willingness to do this, but nobody had seen the Postal Service's plan. So then the Postal Service's plan was released, and it showed this complete whipsaw back and forth, untenable, complicated, bureaucratic procedure. And then she looked at that yesterday and said, there's no way that this can be able to be enacted. So mail-in ballots, at least as of now, will continue to move forward for the midterm elections because they're 2 months away.
Yeah.
So, you know me. I mean, I'm a historian, and I'm following MAGA, and I'm following Trump. And I in democracy, you got to take your body blows. But the biggest fear for me has been the destruction of our democracy and what kind of institutional changes are going to happen. And I was worried, and I am still worried about how MAGA will game the midterms. But yesterday, allowing these mail-in ballots will more or less allow the normal elections that we've had. So, of course, as a historian, the history of mail-in ballots goes back before the American Revolution. I mean, soldiers that were fighting in the American Revolution who were far away from home were allowed to have election officials come to the battlegrounds, take their tally of votes, and then bring them back to their then colonies. There wasn't even a United States, right? And in the War of 1812, we had a sort of version of mail-in ballots, and this expanded hugely during the American Civil War when soldiers who were far from home, especially in 1864, because Lincoln wanted those military votes, so he made sure there was mail-in ballots so that the soldiers were allowed to have mail-in ballots. And then with the Industrial Revolution in the late 19th and early 20th century, we had a much more mobile society where people were out exploring. They were out trying to generate wealth. They were out in oil rigs. They were all over the place. And we saw this general expansion of mail-in ballots. You traditionally needed, until the 1970s, an excuse. It could, of course, be a military excuse. I'm a soldier fighting overseas. But it could be that I'm far away from home doing whatever business venture. But we have this long, long, long history of mail-in ballots. And starting in the 70s and 80s, election reforms and election sort of creative stuff always happens in the West. Women were allowed to vote in the West first. There were all these traditional and it's because the West was wild, so-called wild. You know, there were no railroads, there were no paved streets. Things were harder to mobilize, and they wanted more people to vote in order to get statehood. So all of a sudden, you've got all this creative voting rights. So in the 70s, you get states like California, Oregon, Washington, who actually grow mail-in ballots. And this grew in the early 2000s to the point where you have about a quarter of America voting by mail-in ballots. Many of the states that have universal mail-in ballots without an excuse are red states. Utah was one of the leading states to have mail-in ballots, right? And you could do a whole election with just mail-in ballots in Utah, or you could take your mail-in ballot and now go and deposit it. So you could have that feeling of voting, even though you were doing that. And so we have this long history. In 2016, there were more than 250 million ballots passed. About 25% of them were mail-in ballots. And using the Heritage Foundation's numbers, this right-wing foundation's numbers, there was, I looked this up, 0.00006 instances of election fraud. Some of them mail-in, most of them not mail-in. But nonetheless, there's this whole narrative that these mail-in ballots are going to allow all sorts of fraud to happen. There's no evidence for this at all. But it's become sort of this Trump bugaboo to suggest how this election can be gamed, because he sees the writing on the walls. I've said this before. Trump is a really masterful politician. You might hate the guy. You might love the guy. I don't know, but you might hate the guy. But you got to say he's really good at getting elected, and he's really good at manipulating politicians and politics. And his polling numbers, wherever he gets them from, are pretty accurate. So you can see that there's writing on the wall. He sees himself losing this midterm election. Hopefully it's the House. It could also be the Senate. You know, we'll see how it all goes. But he's worried. And that's why he's pushing this narrative that we're going to have all sorts of fraud, that mail-in ballots are going to be the problem. And he's mostly trying to do this to sow chaos. Because mail-in ballots aren't necessarily a blue state thing. They're not necessarily a red state thing, you know, and then voter ID. I mean, in Massachusetts, 70% of the citizens, this is a reliably blue state, 70% of the citizens have passports, and that's sort of your gold star to vote. In West Virginia, a reliably red state, only 20% of the citizens have passports. So it's not clear exactly how this is going to work politically, other than he wants to sow chaos. So that he can create that narrative.
That's why I have referred to him as this chaos agent, because, you know, Rocky and Bullwinkle would and Natasha would be, you know, they'd be like, yeah, this is our guy. Because at the end of the day, I'll expand what you just said about voting in red and blue states by mail. It's a universal thing in so many states. But it's about the depression and the suppression of showing up. Meaning Trump, the administration, the cabinet, and the broader GOP are showing signs that they're kind of okay if there's chaos with this election in the midterms, because the GOP, the House and Senate folks that are running, they know that their days are numbered too. I mean, if any group of folks in the country have access to a lot of research about politics and about elections, it's those 535 people. So they know what time of day it is. And so I think a lot of the folks on the right who are running are equally aware that their days are numbered. And as a result, they've got to kind of go along with this narrative that there's going to be some shenanigans. And if we can keep this going, then maybe we can, catch a break and stall the elections, or create something that's going to, spread it out a little bit to buy us a little bit more time. That's what this seems to be all about. But the word that is the label is yours and mine is chaos. It's the chaos, the instability. Here's the thing, as we wrap up, and I got a question to ask you, then we got to wrap it up. The thing about chaos is the group that's in power is the group that benefits the most from chaos. And right now, the Republicans, they got the levers. So chaos favors them because they then get to determine how we go forward or not. That's what a lot of people have got to understand. The chaos benefits the Republican Party right now. It's really, I don't think there's really any question behind that. That's why they're not getting in the way of some of the garbage that's going on. All right. Go ahead. You got something to say real quick. And then I ask you a question.
I was just going to say the narrative that, the story that I've been telling for the last several months when I've been lucky enough to be on your show is that we've been sort of seeing, a country divided maybe 40, 30, whatever it is. We've been seeing the MAGA coalition sort of spiral out of control and fall apart until you get to this MAGA core, which is maybe 20% of Americans, something like that. But they're sort of continually losing members over one thing or the other. I talked to some MAGA friends of mine, and they are no longer MAGA. I mean, these were people who supported Barack Obama, and then all of a sudden they became Trumpies because Facebook invited them into the chaos such that it is. And now their thing is the corruption. There's too much corruption. Like, I cannot believe. And I said, that's what it is. Okay, whatever it is, it could be, unnecessary wars. It could be inflation, but it's the corruption. Okay. So now they say both parties are just corrupt, so I'm not going to vote. And I said, that's fine. please.
We'll benefit from you not showing up. All right, Doc, last thing. We got to go.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite music concert that you've ever attended?
Okay, music concert that I've ever attended, special meaning, okay? Because my wife is a huge Adele fan.
Okay.
So when Adele had a residency in Las Vegas, it was right when that ice storm hit Chicago and all the airplanes froze. So she and I went on a planes, trains, and automobile quest to go from Chicago to Las Vegas. We had 48 hours to get there. And I could tell the whole story, but it would take a lot longer than the 1 minute. And we slid into home plate right as the concert was about to happen. We rented a car. We borrowed cars from friends. We got to Las Vegas. And then all of a sudden, to see somebody with that level of talent open her mouth. This working class girl from England, and she opened her mouth, and it was Voice of Angels coming out. It was Marian Anderson, it was something like that where, oh my God, what am I watching and what am I witnessing right now? And it's my wife's favorite singer. So to see my wife light up in the sort of bask of this amazing talent, that goes down. It was a recent one, so it's particularly special to me.
Cool.
We can go on further if you give me more prep.
No, we
can't. In my family history, but that one was amazing. I got another one in New Orleans where I walked into a random
I can't
bar,
do that.
You got Jimi Hendrix. It's not Jimi Hendrix. It's a lookalike. He even has his Fender guitar turned upside down, and he sounded just like Jimi Hendrix. That was
all right, guys. We got to go. Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned to the Stephanie Miller Show.
Thanks, Richard.